Oh, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of First Canada Live, Thursday edition, folks. We haven't done a Thursday in like 4 years, so this is pretty cool. We are very excited to be here. I'm your host, Karthik Against Apathy, and we have a lot to talk about on today's show. But before we get started, as Canadians, it is important to recognize the land of which we are a part. As we gather for this meeting, physically dispersed and virtually constructed, let us take a moment to reflect on the meaning of place, and in doing so, recognize the various traditional lands on which we celebrate today. We acknowledge the elders and youth, past, present, and emerging, of all the land on which we work and live. We honor the ancestral spirits with gratitude and respect. We acknowledge this land out of respect for the indigenous nations who have cared for Turtle Island, also called North America. The indigenous people have been gifted the role of caretakers of this land before the arrival of settler peoples until today. But most importantly, we remember the history of these lands and people that have been tainted by poor treatment and a lack of friendship with the First Nations who called Canada home before it was given this name. This history is something that everyone is affected by. We are all treaty people in Canada. We all have a shared history to reflect upon, and each of us is affected by this history in different ways. Our past defines our present, but if we move forward as friends and allies, it does not define our future. All right, folks. Very, very exciting show today. We're talking about a lot of things, but before we get to any of that, it's time to welcome out our co-hosts. So starting off, we have two co-hosts today. We have from Team 7476 EOM Robotics, Danya. Hello, Danya.
Hi, nice to see you. I'm Danya. I'm a grade 12, and yeah, I'm the chair of Team 7476 EM Robotics, and of course, our sister team, Team 9127. Really excited to be here.
All right, and our next co-host, Kevin, is joining us in just a moment, just trying to get situated at the event at the University of Waterloo right now, because, where else would you rather be than at a first event? So Kevin's going to get situated. He'll be joining us in just a moment. So on tonight's show, folks, we are going to be doing recaps of the Georgian College and Durham College events that took place this weekend. We will not be doing a recap of Humber College because we're going to shift it to next week because the event just finished yesterday. And so, we're just working on getting videos and all of that. So we'll do it next week at the top of the show. So those tuning in for Humber College, don't worry, you have not been forgotten. It's just going to happen in a few days. So there we go. I see a water, water, water chant in the chat in the chant. So you got to come back with a Lou, 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 because that's how we do. That's how we do. Um, Folks, if you are tuning in and you have any questions for the show, just drop them into the chat and we'll try and answer them live on the air, because we just want to have some fun, talk positively about the robots and all the good things that have been happening. So, Danya, in the meantime, it is super important to be thinking about wellness right now because it's, you can even tell I'm a little bit under the weather here. You got to take care of yourselves at this busy, busy time of year. And so the Youth Council always comes on the show and gives us a little bit of a wellness moment. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've come up with today?
Yeah, of course. So, with this year's theme being crescendo, we really want to point out the importance of art and STEAM. And of course, that's why I decided to have drawing be our wellness moment. So, of course, art is really important. And during times, especially during a competition, like Waterloo, everything's so fast paced, high action. You need to take some time for yourself, just relax, do something more quiet, and that's where art or specifically drawing comes in. It's so great to just take some time, maybe like an hour or two, and just draw to your heart's content. And of course, for all of you who may be just starting out, I highly recommend searching up a reference photo and then practicing drawing rather than just drawing straight from your imagination, because I know that can be hard. And really, drawing just allows you to take a break from the action. It lets you better process and organize your thoughts, because rather than just having them in your mind, you're actually putting them on a piece of paper and allowing you to express them visually. So I highly recommend you guys draw anytime you want to take a break or just organize your thoughts. It's definitely great and very important for your mental health.
That's fabulous. That's such a neat idea. You know, drawing's like one of those things I haven't done it in a long time, but maybe I should because I think it's a cool way to kind of calm things down, right? So, Donnie,
Mhm.
have you drawn something recently? You got anything you can show us in like arm's reach?
Unfortunately, not now. All my drawings are in another location. But yeah, I do draw like all the time, and it's honestly super relaxing. I think I'm planning on bringing like my little sketchbook tomorrow
Yeah.
when I go to North Bay and just drawing in the hotel.
Oh, that's going to be a lot of fun. That'll be really, really good. Right, because you're heading up to the North Bay event, which is,
Yeah.
one of like everyone's favorite events. So much excitement going to be at that one. There's so much going on right now. We're seeing in chat that practice matches are going on at Waterloo right now as we speak. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, so this is really good. So in the meantime, we've got a lot of talk about events. Let's just go through our news updates because there's always stuff going on in the world of First Canada. Big thing, First Canada Live, our show schedule. So tonight is on a Thursday, but don't worry, starting next week, we are back to our regular Tuesdays time slot. We'll go Tuesday, Tuesday, Tuesday until the end of provincials. Then we'll take a little bit of a break and then we'll come back for one last Tuesday at the end of World. So that's going to be exciting. So make sure you subscribe wherever you're watching, turn on notifications, and hey, you can even find us on Spotify now. You might be listening to us on Spotify at this moment or at the moment in the future, which is your moment, which is your present. I feel like I'm like in a Doctor Strange time loop right now. But yeah, there's that. So of course, folks, the Ontario Team Slack is still available if you want to join in there to get help with your robot, advice with strategy, all those sorts of things. Teams are there. If you are coordinating travel either to provincials or to worlds, there's a lot of teams in there who are doing that, those sharing buses, sharing trailers. So it's a good place to be. And then, of course, for all our First Canada alumni, remember, join the First Canada alumni group. Go to the link that's dropped in chat, and you can join the LinkedIn group, sign up for the email list, and then, of course, at events, be there for the alumni photo on the field, especially if grade 12s. John, are you in grade 12 now?
Yes, I am.
So you better be in that alumni photo in North
Yep.
Bay. Yeah.
Definitely.
And then at provincials, we're going to have an alumni social where there's going to be food and swag for all our alumni in grade 12 to get to know each other. So that'll be really good.
Hmm.
All right, folks. Well, that is our news update. So I think we're going to come back in just a moment to start talking about this charge up action from week 3 and the beginning of week 4, but mainly week 3. But before we do that, let's take a look at a word from one of our sponsors, Honda. All right, we're back, and we're going to bring out our guest for this weekend. First Canada alum, longtime MC. They were the MC at the Durham College event on the weekend. None other than Praveen Stripalan.
Hey, hey, how's it going, everybody? How we
How's it going,
doing?
Thumby?
Fantastic. I mean, there's never been more robotics in one week, I think, is what it feels like, right?
Yeah, we had 3 events over the span of like 5 days. It was wild here in Ontario, something we haven't done before. That's a good point there, Praveen. And so, you were at Durham, and so I guess the first question for everyone here is, what impressed you most about this weekend's events?
I mean, I gotta say that seeing robots. My favorite games are the ones with projectiles, and seeing so many teams actually participate in kind of every aspect of the game is quite awesome. And so I mean, we saw a lot of teams competing for the first time at Durham. It was their first event, even though it's week 3, Canadian week 2, I want to say. But quite awesome to see all robots kind of competing and contributing to the score. Definitely. You wanted every member of your team in that play for offense. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And like for me, I've seen like a bunch of matches, and honestly, because we're kind of a bit into the season, a lot of strategies have popped up, and that's like kind of unique, and it's got my eye a lot. Especially the defense strategies. I've seen a lot of robots just tape up like little like things onto their robot. I know one robot did a kiddie pool, and I think in Georgian college, someone did like a Pac-Man with googly eyes. So that was nice.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good point. Like, first of all, the defense is interesting, and there's a reason the defense, like with the blockers and the kiddie pool that we saw in the States, and the Pac-Man and all those things are coming up, is because teams are really good at offense already. You don't need to play defense if teams can't score, but teams are scoring effectively, and it's been impressive to see. So, that might have been something we expect because we know our Ontario teams are really strong. But what's surprised folks so far?
Ooh, I'll let Danya take this one first.
Sure. Well, I would say, yeah, I would agree with you, Karthik, and bringing back your point about like the offense. Honestly, I didn't think people would be able to score like this many notes in like one match. It's kind of insane, and also the fact that I thought when I initially got the game, I thought most people choose between the amp or the speaker, but it's really interesting to see how flexible teams are, and that a lot of teams just chose to do both, which I think was really nice.
What about you, Praveen? What's surprising you?
Yeah, I think I mean totally. Giving great point about the amp, doing the amp and the because people are duplicating those or creating multiple mechanisms to hit that. I didn't expect that myself. Surprising. I think. I mean, we said it with the defense, but maybe I'll switch over to the strategy side. I was surprised to see not so much coordination in terms of the strategy or teams kind of like you could see teams talking to each other as they do about their strategy and whatnot. But I think in the past, what we've always seen is a lot of people reaching out to their teammates well ahead of their match or well ahead of those qualifications. And so you can kind of see that out in the field compared to, day one compared to day two, about how teams kind of organize together and how they kind of switch together. So I know strategy is a big part of a lot of team discussions and a lot of discussions online with other teams about what the optimal way to stop a team is or what the optimal way to win is. So I'm really excited to see more of that, because I think that's also kind of what Ontario does really well, is producing that strategy that everyone else wants to do, right? So for me, surprise, but also now excitement in terms of that potential is right there, right? You don't have to change your robot to change your strategy
That's
necessarily.
always a good point. That's how you can adapt season scouting and strategies where you get your advantages. So the one thing that surprised me is, and this is a little bit of a strategy pieces, but the low rate of teams engaging competition in these matches. And it played out very heavily because I think a lot of people are probably thinking about cooperation only in the lens of, oh, it reduces your ranking point threshold by 3. And some teams might be thinking, oh, we're so far away from that threshold, or we can get that threshold no matter what. So this doesn't super matter. But co-op is the first tiebreaker after ranking points. And there were a lot of teams who didn't do co-op, and it cost them a couple spots in the city, which can make the difference between being a captain or not being a captain, or being like the number 3 captain or the 6 captain, which is a pretty big gap sometimes. So I'm surprised because it's just, one extra note that you have to do, and it still counts towards your ranking point threshold. So a little surprised there. And some cases it was one team doing it and the other team not doing it. And maybe they were doing it strategically. Maybe they wanted to not help the other team in the rankings or whatever. But sometimes it was just both teams not doing it. And I was like, this is interesting. So I'm curious to see how that goes. But on that note, how do you folks think the game is going to change over the next few weeks?
Well, I think especially as we head towards provincials, I think just to achieve a melody, I know in provincials we're raising the stakes from like 18 notes to like 21. So I think a lot of teams will start doing that cooperation point thing just so that they could reduce the threshold, because of course initially right now a lot of teams can hit that like 18. So definitely we will start seeing more people using competition.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Dania, because with the threshold, that was in the team update on Tuesday. The ranking point threshold is going to be raised for all district championship events. Right now, it's 18 or 15 with co-op, and it's going to go up to 21 or 18. So if you want to be at 18, you're going to have to do co-op. So that's a really good point. What about you, Praveen?
I mean, I think what's oh my goodness, I had something and I really just forgot it off the top of my head. But in terms of oh my goodness, what was it going to say? Oh gosh, I'm blanking. We ask your question again, maybe it'll come back.
Yeah, sorry, Praveen. There's so much going on right now. There's a lot of things to do with. But how do you think the game will change over the next few weeks? Maybe by the time we get to
Yes.
provincials.
So I mean, we didn't really see, I think, human players at the source hitting a second rack. But as these, you see it just over the course of a day, you see teams scoring more, you see teams hitting their autos. They're getting rid of the notes that are on the field. They're starting to access more of the notes on the rack. I am so interested in seeing, if we can be one of those districts that wipes the source notes, and see if that's because I do think the potential is really there. But we were also seeing teams pass and teams passing notes. And there's a lot of risk in kind of throwing away a note, right? If there's no other
Yep.
notes on the field. So how stingy do we now become potentially in not passing and doing a full cycle? So just like again, the day one and day two of Durham was, no defense to defense and scores kind of dropping. It makes you wonder about how the robots are going to transverse the field. So more notes off the rack. I think we all think that'll happen, but whether or not people do full cycles now versus passing, I think we're going to see more of those full cycles rather than trying to exchange in the middle of the field or throwing it over the stage.
It's interesting. We got a question in chat here from Packery that says, what do you see the matches at Worlds looking like? So I had a chance this afternoon to watch some of the Israel District Championship, which is played earlier than the other district championships because the teams need time to, get their robots over from the Middle East. So The amp efficiency was really great, where in the playoffs, teams were only ever shooting the speaker when it was amplified. It was like I saw a match where there was only two non-amplified notes in the speaker. So they were making sure they go amp, amp, score, score, score. I know we'll be talking about it more next week, but at a Humber College event, something 4946 was really good at. They were pulling off perfect amplification cycles. And what I could define as a perfect amplification cycle is when you get four amplified shots in the speaker, because that's the maximum you can get. It turns off after you hit four. So I think where this game is going to evolve is teams using amplification more efficiently. And I think that's going to be the key strategy. Praveen, you talked about strategy to improve your game. That's how you win matches. Because, if you think about Worlds last year, all the teams are basically scoring the same number of game pieces, alliances. Like 26 to 29 game pieces was what was happening in playoffs. But this year, you can score the same. You can score like 6 or 7 fewer game pieces than your opponent, but still beat them on speaker score just by scoring efficiently. And so I think to go with that, I think the passing is going to become more strategic, where the passing is going to set up so that you want to make sure that you have notes available when you're amplified. That's when you need the notes. If you're just passing just to score them for 2-point shots of the speaker, it's not actually worth it. Like there's some worth on those centerline notes to pass them forward because you're keeping them for your opponent. But the most important thing is that when you are going to your alliance needs to hit 4 shots of the speaker in that amplification period. So how are you going to do that? Most teams are not fast enough to take a shot and then go all the way back and come back down. Sure, 2056 is, but most teams are not. But you don't have to be 2056 to beat 2056 this year if you have the notes stockpiled there. But it's about using your stockpile at the right time. So this is what I'm excited about. This is where I think the game is going to go. And for many years, some people have been like, oh, there hasn't been much strategy in FRC. It's just score, score, score. The strategy is to score the most, This year, the drive coaches who can call strategy well and can call for passes at the right time and ensure that you're amping at the right time, oh, they're going to be good. And that's why I'm super excited for this game for the championship. So that's where I think it's going to change. One other question to throw out there, folks, is, we've talked about, and Don, I know you weren't at an event this weekend, so I'll hold this one for Praveen. But Praveen, tell us about any moments of gracious professionalism that you saw.
Ooh, I mean, I love to see. First of all, it's good to be at an event. That was my first event of the season, so fantastic. I want to start. I mean, like I think mentioning a GP moment with the teams is important, but I just want to start with the volunteers, because despite delays, despite time going slow, and sometimes we didn't always have the field functioning perfectly, right? Volunteers were on top of it, and we have a fantastic group of volunteers in Ontario that make it such a good event. So I think despite delays, despite maybe things that should be stressing people out, I didn't feel like that stress was kind of leaking out onto folks. One of my favorite GP moments, and I think it's always good to see, people are always good about cheering for their team or kind of supporting their team to win. They want to see their team win. But I think it was the Wild Wires. Their drive team was just so ecstatic every time and so excited to be cheering for their alliance or just really everyone. And then also shout out to Beaverworks as well, because they would be there. Their drivers are clapping for every one of their teammates and the people they're competing against. I think moments like that for me really emphasize how we're trying to we're competitors. We're all competitors. We're trying to beat one another in this game, but at the end of the day, we're a community, and being in this community means supporting each other and making each other better. So big thing for sure.
Yeah, the Beaverworks one I think was really special, where at the Durham College event, there was a little bit of a celebration for Beaverworks because they won the championship last year down in Houston. And so it's their first event. And so during opening ceremonies, they were recognized. There was some confetti dumped on them or whatever. But the whole audience was so into it. And that's one of the things I love is that Ontario teams just support Ontario teams, and everyone's just so happy. It doesn't, obviously everyone wants it to be their team as the world champion, but everyone's just so proud of each of the Ontario world champions, going back to 11-14 in 2008, and then 6-10 and 12-41 in 2013, and 27-08 in 2018, and now Beaverworks in 2023. It's just fabulous to kind of see. I know, Johnny, you weren't at an event, but maybe something this season, some gracious professionalism you saw.
Oh yeah, so at New Market, shout out to Makeshift because they honestly came and they sent their mentors to our team, and their mentors were so helpful. They kind of pointed out some potential improvements on our robot, and they helped us work through them. And even after every match, like when our robot might have broken down, they still came and helped us fix it, and it was such a huge help. And honestly, just thank you to them. Yeah, it was a huge act of gracious professionalism.
I know this is a big claim, but I make it anyways. I think Makeshift is the nicest team at all first, which is like a bold statement because there are 3,600 really, really nice teams in this program. But wow, they
It's a bold statement, but one of
yeah,
the most defendable statements probably in
yeah.
FRC, I think so.
Everyone has a story about Makeshift being nice and
Yeah,
kind or
absolutely.
helpful, and just from their leadership, with Matt Alberson, Matt Ciprietti, all the way down to every student, and we've seen a lot of their students age through the program, from FLL all the way. Yeah, just a great team. But we have many of those, and that's kind of what's really cool about things in Ontario. All right, folks, we are going to come back and we're going to, we got an interesting comment in chat. Love this. This is from Worst Squash 9, who says, we collect a stat that measures what percentage of a team's speaker scores are amplified, which can be nice to see how efficient they are with a speaker. Absolutely. That's a great stat. The one I look at is speaker points, total note points divided by number of notes scored, which is a similar sort of thing. It's an efficiency metric. So we're just trying to see how efficient cycles are. And and if you aren't able to collect stats, you can use component OPR that's available on the Blue Alliance just to look at total notes and total points. And there's just a lot of ways to do it. But efficiency it gives you a sense of how smart the team is playing, which is a really good thing to measure when you're making picks for alliance selection, because it's not necessarily the most notes that's going to win. It's going to be the notes that are scored the most efficiently, which is it's cool. It's a cool concept to think about, and like the NBA has this to a certain degree with effective field goal percentage, where you value 3-pointers more than 2-pointers instead of just looking at like number of shots made. That wouldn't be a smart way of doing it. You got to weigh the other shots more. It's the same way we need to weigh speaker shots made while amplified more. So, you know, analytics from the NBA, like John Hollinger, your world is being taken over by First right now. Is basically it. Call me, call me. All right, folks. We will be back in a moment to talk with the Georgian College event. But before we do that, let's take a look at a word from one of our sponsors, Enbridge.
Manufacturing is the cornerstone of our economy. However, it is one of the largest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions. There are a multitude of solutions, including energy efficiency, low carbon technologies such as renewable natural gas, geothermal, and hydrogen, and they all play a part in the transition towards a clean energy future.
A specific example of how Enbridge is leading the energy transition is leveraging our storage assets where we've been safely storing natural gas for 75 years, and to now look at those same assets to store new things such as hydrogen.
There are areas that you just can't electrify efficiently. So for instance, the making of steel, where they use gas or coal as part of the process itself. You have to use something that's to replace those elements, and hydrogen fits the bill.
It's just beginning. We're starting to scale up pilot projects and demonstration projects to utility scale size and implement real change.
All right, we're back. Apologies for my coughing fits here. Just a little bit under the weather. These things happen at this time of year after events and all. So I should probably take a COVID test now that I think about it. It's the world we live in. It's wild, right, Praveen?
It's been an interesting half decade, hasn't it?
Yeah. The good thing is I'm going in full isolation until provincials. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going for runs outside and that's it. So humans, you want to see me? No chance, like maybe the Uber Eats driver is the closest that anyone's going to get to me at this point. Yeah, I can't be sick for provincials. Okay, like, do you understand how cool provincials is going to be this year? It is going to
I
be
get it.
so good. I don't want to take any risks of missing that. Put me in a bubble, until provincials. It's just I'm not missing this one for sure. All right, folks, it's time to drink a little bit of a recap of the Georgian College event. So let's take a look at the stats from the event. Stat slide time from Robotics. Hey, by the way, shout out to everyone at First Headquarters. You probably noticed that there was some issue getting match results throughout the weekend, and there was some issues with the API. But the staff at First Headquarters were working so hard to get it fixed, and then, hey, it's working again. So we got our stats back. So this is great. All right, let me get my trusty pen out here. And so, hey, we've got it's pretty even at Georgia. Like we have three teams up at the top together, 4907, 3683, 1325, all in that kind of same tier of scoring ability. 4907 a little bit better at endgame and auto, while 3683 and 1325 a little bit better at teleop. But you see, you got this tier, and then you got a nice second tier in here. And there we go. These are like the top teams at the event. So it's some distance from the pack. Not the same distance we saw with 2056, but there is a lot of top teams in Ontario right now. So that is cool to see. And then as I clear my screen, hold on, how do I do that? There we go. All right, let's take a look at our next slide to see the alliances. Remember, the dark green means teams in the top 10% of the world. So we had 6 of them in Ontario this week. That is very impressive. Very nice to see right there. So we're talking about 4907, 3683. Oh, wait, I did it again. I counted wrong because the columns. 4 of them. Oh, now I'm just making a mess. Look, what am I doing here? What am I doing here? 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4907, 3683, 1325, and 998. So we talked about 9898 last week at Newmarket. They got better. And Danya, you saw them in Newmarket, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, so a very impressive team, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, and we saw that with 1325 at Centennial. No surprise they're there. And this was 4907 and 3683's first time out for the season. So they form a powerful number 1 alliance. Potential for 67. That's pretty big here. But then we see, we got 2 very solid number 2 alliances right here, number 2 and number 3. So this is a fairly well-balanced tournament right here. And so we are going to clean the screen, get my eraser out. Ooh, there we go. Did the wipe. But we're going to take a look here at final match number 1, featuring many of the teams we just talked about. Teams 4907, 3683, and 5031. In red, the number 1 alliance, and the number 2 alliance, 1325, 2702, and 9782 in blue. 1325 was a winner at Centennial already. Other teams playing for the first time. So let's take a look and see what they got. All right, 3, 2, 1, crescendo. And here go the robots quickly out in autonomous mode. 36. So let's pause here for a sec. It's auto is over. The center line is clear.
Yeah.
All the notes are gone. So teams are going after that. That was competitive right there, as we saw. And we saw 3683 really just come out and bang 1 and then bang 2. That was super impressive. Let's actually roll it back and look at this autonomous mode again, because this is worth watching. Just really smooth. And Team Dave, they've been one of the best autonomous teams in the province, in the world the last couple of years. Remember their 3-piece auto last year, so no surprise that they come out gunning right there. So 31 to 27 after auto, and then the cycling begins. And very just impressed by the smooth driving of both alliances here. 1325, we saw this already at Centennial. But 4907 and 3683, just, whoo, they're fluid.
I'm really just so enamored by watching these robots. I haven't seen the match, so this is
And 4907, as we see in the corner, they're doing some passing, and see what they did there. They did 2 passes, and then they come down for a cycle because they're trying to set themselves up for amplification. So it's not about just flooding the zone, but I bet you they're going to do 2 more right here. Passes. Yep. Or maybe not. Maybe they're coming yet. Yep, pass. And they're going to go pass again. This is my first time watching this match, to be completely honest. So there you go. See, there you go. 2 passes, and now they're going to come in for a cycle.
Look at that placement too. I mean, right in front.
Oh, okay, they go throw 3 passes. They threw me off. Come on. But yeah, Also, passing is a thing that you have to be efficient with. Some robots aren't designed to do it, but we saw some teams who have like specifically designed their shot around it. And that's really cool here for 4907. And just like the efficient passing here, the efficient cycling, we've been talking about 4907, but Team Dave is just like cleaning up all over the place. While over on the other side, 2702 and 1325 looking great. Also, I'm very impressed by 9782. They were a late registered rookie from Wexford School for the Arts, and an arts focused school kicking butt at First Robotics, folks. It's for everyone. As we're going down to the end game here. This is fantastic to watch. 4907, just these laser beam shots.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard. Alliance 2 falls behind. This is just a really powerful number one alliance. 3683, 4907, very well balanced. And time for the hangs. Is someone going to trap here? 3683 not going to trap. And 4907 comes in. Last second park. That's the way to do it. Got to get everyone parked here. Woo! For 4907 and 3683, for their first time out to be playing like that in the finals, look out for their second events, which 3683 is like at practice right now at Waterloo, and then 4907 is going to Windsor, I believe. So a lot of high flying robots there. Great job by 1325 and 2702, but just a lot of power there. So let's take a look at the final score. 93 to 69 right there. 76 speaker points for Alliance number one. Just very well done. Very, very well done. Praveen, Danya, any thoughts on that match?
That was actually really impressive. Honestly, just watching these matches is always such a rush. But it's interesting to see how when you go to qualification matches, most people do the on stage thing. But as we progress to playoffs, most teams choose to not do that strategy and try to score those extra points in those last few seconds.
Well, it's such a good point, Danya, because it's a numbers game. So in qualification, you're trying to get that ensemble ranking point, which is very, very important. But, it's 3 points for hanging or 5 points for an amplified shot. So if you can get that amplified shot off, and sometimes you can get two, like a lot of teams that take like 15, 20 seconds. So, and if you've already stockpiled shots with passing and you have a couple down there, you could do one in the amp, which leads to amplification for, and then 5. Like there's lots of ways to get more than 3 points. Even just 2 normal speaker shots will get it for you. So that's a really, really good point that, before it was like, oh, you have to do endgame, you have to do endgame. But and I think we saw a little bit of it in 2022 where there were some teams who were so good at scoring, they would just clean up on the ground, what letting everyone else hang. Like 11-14 that year, not the most efficient hanger, but was a super efficient scorer. So at Provincial, they would let 2056 and 4152 go hang, and then they would just keep popping up. Well, everyone's gone to hang. The field's kind of empty. But this year, not everyone's going to hang. So it's interesting. Praveen, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it also gets busy. Just speaking to that point too, it's busier now when you're scoring. You want to get in the way or be in those channels while other people are trying to get in those channels too, clogging the source side or clogging those lanes going past the stage, not to go through the stage. So it's really interesting. I just love, I mean, seeing the top down view that you get on the stream, seeing the robots fly back and forth. I mean, we saw a lot of passing in that one, and 4907 has that great arc for hitting it over the stage. You can see where they're passing it, right in front of the amp. So or sorry, not the amp, but the speaker there. Fantastic setup. But yeah, when they're flying past each other and just the fact that everyone's got these swerve drives that are just going in every single direction, they're doing these little spins across. It just looks like a chaotic ballet. And it's just so cool to see. The robots getting really fast, the drivers are getting really fast. It's a good combination of upskilling on a lot of different levels that makes it play out like that. So I mean, there have been years, I think, where we don't see that much movement, right? Or it's a lot slower. It's first on like a whole different level. So very cool just to watch it from that perspective.
The robots are probably 50% faster than they were in 2020. And if you go back to 10 years ago, I argue to say they might be twice as fast. It is wild how fast robots are moving. And that brings up a whole other realm of things that beyond the scope of today's show, but it is really interesting to see. All right, folks. So at the Georgian College event, congratulations to our winners, Team 4907 Thunderstamps, Team 3683 Team Dave, and Team 5031 Full Metal Mustangs, winning their first gold in a while. Finalists, Team 1325 Inverse Paradox, their third medal of the year, and we'll talk about their fourth medal, which they earned later on at this event. Team 2702 Rebels and Team 9782 Wex Tech Titans, who also won the Rookie All-Star Award. So that's super exciting. Dean's List goes to Abjosh S from 2702 and Sophia Q from 9098. Engineering Inspiration to Team 9098, the Firehawks, second-year team winning Engineering Inspiration. So the Rookie All-Star last year, Engineering Inspiration this year. And then the Impact Award to Team 1325, Inverse Paradox. So that is a whole host of medals right there for them. Very, very cool to see. And the Impact Award for Inverse Paradox, they have been one of the teams at the forefront of outreach in Ontario and doing so many things in the community. And so it's cool to see them recognized. And they will be going for a district championship Impact Award in just a few weeks. So that's exciting for them. So congratulations to all these teams. And folks, we will be back talking about Durham College in just a moment. All right, folks, we are back. We're going to talk about the Durham College event. Hey, Praveen, were you at the Durham College event?
I think I was. It's hard to remember now with another whole competition in between, but
Guess what,
I
Praveen?
have good
I was at the
memories.
Durham College event too.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I feel like we were standing beside each other for like most of the weekend.
Probably a lot of it, yeah.
It was a good time, along with head referee Thuvashan Rajagula Singham.
Another Thumby.
Another Thumby, all the Thumbies together. All right, folks, let's take a look at the stats to see what happened at this event. It was a very exciting event where you had, again, like another top tier of teams as we bring it up right here. And we see, we have two teams that kind of stood apart. Team 1241 Theory 6 and 5460 Strike Zone from Michigan in the United States. So that is your tier one, but these two robots got split up because the number one seed was Team 5406 Celtex. So they went and chose 5460, and then 1241 went and chose their co-team at their school, Team 1285. You might say, well, 1285 is pretty far back. But that doesn't tell the story about 1285 because they started off a little bit rough, but by Sunday afternoon, they were in that top four for sure. They were just flying around the field. I want to give a special shout out to Team 2135 Naki. How does it go, Praveen?
2935 Naki.
There you go, 2935 Naki. It's a great cheer. It's a great cheer. Did you come up with that cheer, Praveen?
I think so.
You're not even
It's
on their
controversial,
team.
but but I've laid claim to it.
So we've talked a lot about Swerve Drive this year and how effective Swerve Drive is and how you need Swerve Drive to be successful. But 2935 Tank Drive may be the best tank drive robot in the world right now. That's a bold claim. There's lots of robots out there, but like they're just flying around the field, effective scoring, 4-piece auto. They were fantastic. And so just want to
definitely underrated, right? Like you would have thought that they would have been picked up potentially as a potential first pick. I mean, they were ranked up high enough to be a captain, so makes sense. But any one of our first two alliances could have chosen Naki and done an exceptional job with them together. So
yeah, they're just a powerful shooter, very accurate, well driven, great team, just great people too. Really nice. Big fan of Naki. All right, let's take a look at our next stat slide to take a look at the alliances. And there we go. We see the numbers right here, and we see, our big three at the event, 5406, 5460, 1241. And then, hey, there's Naki right there, and they're right there with alliance number 3. So we have some great alliances. Alliance number 1 was the favorite going into this one. There was some power, but it all the stats underestimated 1285 because, I mean, they didn't underestimate them. They didn't do well to start things out. It was a bit of a slow start, But you gotta, when you're scouting, you can't just look at total averages. You have to look at which direction teams are trending in, and that's super important. And 1241 which direction 1285 was trending. And obviously they have some inside information because they work in the same school, so they know the full potential. I just got circles everywhere. I'm a mess. I'm a mess. Okay, so now it's time to look at a great match, and this was a fun one. We're going to take a look at final number one again, this time from Durham College. So in red, we got team 5406, 5460, and 3543. And in blue, we got teams 1241, 1285, and 9621. And this match, folks, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it was close. It was close. So let's take a look. Oh, look at Thumbie spinning his flag right there. Like, is that like a nervous twitch through his hand? Like, that's mesmerizing. It's a pinwheel. Okay, all right. Let's focus up here. Autonomous mode.
There's a robots on the field, Karthik.
Yeah. Robots going in autonomous mode right there. We see some center line action, not as much as we saw at Georgian, but just 1240. Let's pause for a second here. And there's the advantages when you have two teams that are at the same school, or just two teams who practice a lot together, because 1241 and 1285 had distinct complementary auto modes, so they could just go to separate spaces and maximize their note coverage. Well, usually what happens is you pick someone and then you're changing your auto modes on the fly. So having that preparation in there
It's
was
a
effective.
lot of work, right?
And while we're paused right here, I'm going to circle two things. Blocker number one, blocker number two. So these alliances decided to go 2 offense, 1 defense. They want the blockers to block shots. Blockers do very effective things because they will park in this spot right there, and they can block shots. They obscure the April tags, which mess up people's cameras, and they make people panic because sometimes you have the trajectory to shoot over the blocker, but you won't. So you go to shoot from places where your drivers haven't been shooting from a lot. And it's not necessarily that shots are blocked, but shots are adjusted. And so this was something, and we're gonna go NBA again, that Hakeem Olajuwon was so great at. He blocked a lot of shots, but he adjusted so many shots because people were terrified. Well, Shaq more so. It's like, oh, Shaq's there. I'm not going near there. I'm just gonna go somewhere else. And so adjusted shots are a thing that we can watch for in this match. So as I clear, let's take a look at the start of teleoperated mode.
Let's also not forget about I think 5460's autonomous there is, I think they go for 5 notes. I don't think they hit all 5, but they go for 5, which is huge. When you do miss 1 or 2, you still have those 3s nicely in there.
We see the defense bots both going to park at the subwoofer. It's they're just really into the base. That's why they're parked at the subwoofer.
And they do such a good job against these.
Oh,
You'll see
shot
a
right
lot
there.
of notes get blocked. Yeah. It's a big difference in these finals.
Yeah, like if you look at the blue robots, they are not able to get to their normal spot because 9621 is just kind of sitting there. Okay, don't move, just sit. Don't need to move. Defense robots.
Yeah.
Hey, let's pause for a second here. I'm going to give advice to everyone who wants to run a blocker strategy right now. If you are running a blocker strategy, you need to park in front of the subwoofer and not move. I know it's tempting to move, but if you move, you're going to let someone else in there. The key to effective defense in FRC is patience. So many teams try and defend a robot. No. You defend a spot of carpet because you know where that spot of carpet is going to be. It's not going anywhere. So sit there. If you try and, especially if you're a tank drive, if you try and chase around one of these swerve bots, they're gonna break your ankles. We're just gonna talk NBA analogies, but they're gonna cross you over, and you're gonna be left in the dust. So just park, get your big thing up, obscure the April tags, block and adjust the shots. If you just make them go to the sides, especially if it's a team that's been shooting from the fender consistently, you can really, really slow them down. All right, let's keep going. Yeah, see, by moving, no, don't move, just sit. I like that that 3543's got their blocker on a right angle, so whatever direction they're in, it can still block. That's smart.
They've got 2 sides. Yeah.
I love how we have 4 of the best offensive robots in the world, and I'm just talking about these cardboard box blockers. I'm so into
because
this.
It's so. I mean, hey, look, this Alliance 1 never got to their high score again after we started seeing more of these blockers, right? I mean,
that's right. They put up 100 points in like their first match, Praveen, right?
Absolutely. Like that was the highest score we saw that whole weekend, and we didn't see it in finals. And I mean, not to say that's surprising, but it's a big difference when you're not hitting your maximum score, right?
Defense matters, man.
Mhm. Defense
Uh,
wins championships.
yes, there you go. So look, 1241. They're a little bit stuck by the blocker over on the red side. It's tough sledding right here.
Mhm.
Both these alliances are being slowed down. This is so teams, if you're thinking about your robot and you're struggling with your shooter and you're thinking about, okay, at provincials, how am I going to get on an alliance? Maybe get the blocker on early instead of just waiting until the playoffs to put it on.
Show them how good your
Yeah,
defensive
this
strategy
match,
is,
all right,
right?
coming
Yeah.
down to the end right here, just a couple points separating them. Everyone's now go back and park, folks, because every point matters. The blockers did not go back to park, and it looked like a 1 point game at a second right there. And so we'll take a look at the final score here, but it is a question like how early do you go back to park? Because if you go back too early, then other shots can go in. But every point matters. 73-70 was the final score right there. And there were 10 points of penalties on the Blue Alliance, which allowed the Red Alliance to get that win in a squeaker. The Blue Alliance actually had 10 more speaker points. So, couple things to say. Number one, please be careful with your penalties. Please be careful, especially when you drive around the stage in the last 20 seconds. That is just, we saw so many G424 calls, but be careful with penalties. And I forget what the second thing I was going to say. I'm sure. Pravi, what was I going to say?
I mean, I would have gone with the penalties right away too. I think there were so many games, even in playoffs, that were determined by 4 or 5 points. And again, I mean, we said it. I said it earlier at the top of the show, and I think this is really good advice for anyone who, if you don't have the capacity for a strategy team, but you do have one person who could talk to those other like just talk about where you're going to be and how you're going to play, because it'll just take a lot of stress and kind of weight off your coaches to have to think about that right before a match, right? And then planning out how to make sure that you're not going to get those penalties or park in time or I mean, yeah, it's really, really key to be careful about those penalties because a lot of matches were really lost because of that.
Yeah. Really good point from Worst Squash number 9 in chat saying if you are in the last 20 seconds, avoiding the park might be better because you're risking getting pushed into the stage. Driving past the stage, your opponent's stage is risky the last 20 seconds. So
Yeah, great point.
I would say, especially if you're not used to driving around with that blocker on, that's one of those things you might want to be careful about. So you risk getting pushed into the stage. And also, remember, the protection exists as long as they've got their bumpers partially in the stage. So they can stick out from the stage. So that's a risk as well. So that's a really good point.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a question from Soka Juice. Is there a strategy when you opt out of parking? Because I saw a lot of not parking with enough time to park. I think some of the strategy might be what War Squash 9 was saying, which is don't want to drive past the stage. I also think that a lot of matches, it's not within a point or doesn't even seem like it's within a point. So some teams would be like, okay, what's the point? Ha 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 of parking right there. But I also think that some teams are just missing it. I'm a big believer you want to capture every point possible. Every point counts, so you don't want to take any risks that way. So that's something that I would think was important. But
Well,
yeah, I'm not.
let's even revisit when you're shooting, or if you know the other teams can shoot really well, you might want to stick around that speaker to make sure that they're not getting that last shot in.
Yep.
And that delta is in your favor, right?
Yeah, like
if they're amped, I guess.
Yeah, because if someone might say, like, thinking back to Worst Squash 9's strategy of like, well, you don't want to drive past the last 20 seconds. Like, okay, well, why don't you leave at 25 seconds? Well, then you're giving them a bunch of shots. And especially if they've been passing, there could be a lot of notes on the field. And now I would say that there were not a lot of notes left on the field in that match. Teams were being very efficient with their notes, but it's all interesting. There's a lot of things to think about in this game, a lot of different strategies out there. And the blocking one, I would not be surprised if at provincials of our 100 teams, 20 come to provincials with blockers on board before the playoffs, because you might say, how do I get into the top 24? I want to be in the top half. Am I one of the top half teams in my division? And if not, it's like, okay, well, then maybe I get on by having a great blocker. And then we'll be back to the old debate. What's better, 3 offense robots or 2 offense and 1 defense? Because by the time we get to provincials, there will definitely be enough robots to have all 3 robots cycling. So are you going to score more points by triples offense?
The best debate possible.
And then it gets even more interesting because if you are the number 8 alliance, you're like, well, how am I going to beat like we look at these powerful teams we saw. Let's just take two of them. Let's say 2056 and 3683. How are we going to outscore them? Maybe we can't. So maybe we're going to have to play with the defensive robot. But that might, if like 4 defensive robots go at the bottom of the alliance selection, by the time it gets back to the top alliance of say like 1241 and 1325, they might have a really good scorer available to them, which might make their offense even more powerful. So before it was always like, oh yeah, the top robots will pick a defense robot, but that might get flipped on its head. So it's really interesting. Another comment from chat from Paraba5719. During Humber, we got our blocker to leave at 90 seconds because they can climb. So in our eyes, it was worth it. Now, if they can climb, that's definitely worth more than a park. So there's more points than there. They were able to climb quicker, but we didn't want to risk touching the stage. Yeah, don't risk touching the stage. You know, it's risky. Or you're gonna have a driver who's just very good at hugging the guardrail and getting around there. But that's so that was the Durham College event. But hey, remember, we had a lot of winners to talk about at the Durham College event. Winners of the event: Team 1241, Theory 6, Team 1285, the Biggest Birds, and Team 9621, Halo, rookie team getting gold.
Fantastic.
Finalist Team 5406, Celtex, 5460, Strike Zone, and 3543, C4 Robotics. Dean's List goes to Chloe Z from 8884 and Erwin S from 1285. Engineering Inspiration to Team 188, The Blizzard. That's pretty cool for them. And the Impact Award goes to Team 1241, Theory 6, their first Impact Award in 6 years, if you can believe that. I mean, 6 years.
I believe they stopped competing.
They stopped submitting.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
2019 was the last time they submitted, and then I think pandemic happened and everything else. But great to see one of the leaders in our community, one of the strongest programs. Forget about robots, but just all around the work that they do with establishing the library programs.
Yeah,
Just
refugee
so many
programs.
things. Yeah.
Mhm.
Donia, any thoughts on the Durham event from the spectator perspective?
Yeah, so I know we focused a lot on endgame, but I think it's important to even say it out loud, the autonomous strategy, because I know a lot of strategy before the actual match is, oh yeah, once teleop begins, let's all get the nodes from the center lines. But I think the best strategy, and I think what a lot of teams are starting to do, is really progressing to getting rid of all those nodes on the center line in autonomous itself. And that was like the difference we saw between both those matches in Georgian College and Durham. And I think, yeah, that's definitely a good strategy, because it does mess with the team strategy and they might have to like struggle to improvise. So yeah.
I am really excited for the first autonomous mode that we have this season, where there are no notes left on the field after autonomous mode. I would like to see 17 notes scored in auto. Is there 17? 5, 3, 3, that's, and then 6 more. Yeah, 17. So I think it's going to happen at provincials.
Very aggressive, but yeah, no, I mean, it's possible.
Where it might stop it from happening is if 2 teams go for the same note and then neither of them get it. That'll probably
That's
be
what
the
I'm
hardest part.
interested in seeing, really.
Yeah.
Like, because that just, I mean, when you don't start teleop with the advantage that you're expecting, it can get in your head. That momentum is lost, right?
Yeah, those races are going to be powerful, how fast you can go. And so it'll be interesting because maybe we have some very good big robots, but maybe some of these smaller robots will be able to accelerate a little bit quicker to get to those notes for that short sprint distance sort of thing. And then, also the touch it and own it intakes. And I keep talking about Humber. We'll talk about it next week. The 4946, they just got near a note and that was into their robot. Well, you see other teams drive to a note, they kind of push it or whatever. Touch it and own it has always been the gold standard of intakes, and folks who have that will be much better at those autonomous modes. So there's a lot to see. But hey, folks, 2 events this weekend. Waterloo is starting tomorrow, so that's going to be a fantastic one. Donnie is heading up to North Bay for a great event. We will be back next Tuesday talking about the Humber College event, Waterloo, and North Bay. It's going to be fantastic. Teams, good luck at your events. If you are done your events, good luck with your provincials prep. If you're done your season, good luck with everything, and congratulations on being awesome. So we will be back next week. Reminder to everyone, stay safe out there, have fun, and we will see you in a little bit. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.